Where's the camera? It's facing this way.
Go ahead.
Hello from COP15 and this session entitled Restoring Ecosystems, Practical Steps for Tree Growing. We are delighted to be joined by a wonderful panel of speakers to talk about the practicalities of tree growing for faith-based communities, and the context of that is a new guide on tree growing for faith groups, which will be introduced shortly. But first, I'd like to introduce Fran Price from WWF International, who is their lead on forests. And Fran, if you could speak to the importance and the context of tree growing, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gopal. So it's wonderful to be here with you all today. Forest restoration and tree growing is such a critical part of what we need to do to heal our broken relationship with nature. And I am thrilled to be part of the launch of this practical guide and this partnership with faith groups and the conservation community. I think together we can be a powerful force for re-greening the planet. And faith groups have such an important role to play with the values and care for the earth, and also the role that they have as stewards of land and of forests. Faith groups own and steward 8% of the world's habitable lands. And so I just want to say how honored I am to be part of this and to be part of this partnership. And I have such hopes for the work that we can be doing together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fran. To really set the stage and the context for why tree growing is so important, and specifically why it's important for faith-based organizations. So thank you so much. I'd now like to invite up Anita from WWF International to talk about the guide, which we have here, a tree growing guide for conservation and ecosystem restoration, to talk about the 6 practical steps that are contained within that. So Anita, over to you.
Thank you, Gopal. It's really a pleasure to be here. We have been working so hard to get here. So we are launching the tree growing for conservation and ecosystem restoration. This is a practical guide for faith-based actors. This guide has been developed with the community of faith-based organizations, and we have been working for a long time, and we have consultation moments. And in the end, what is this guide about? This guide brings us 6 steps to help us to go through the process of tree growing. And it's important for us to see that we're not talking about tree planting here, we're talking about tree growing, because we really want to make sure that the results of our action, they do bring the benefit that we're seeking for. So I will explain to you these 6 steps of the guide, and then we are going to have a discussion here to see what is behind the 6 steps, because I think we need to understand them well in order to be successful for what we are aiming here. So this is the guide, and in the guide we have the 6 steps. These 6 steps are aligned with other steps also that we can find under the ecosystem restoration principles of the UN Decade, and also now the standards of practice that there are in development. So they are all aligned. But we decided to do a tailor-based guide that helps your community, your faith-based community, to have success in your project. So the first thing, we need to agree the vision and the purpose of tree growing. And these conversations, this dialogue with your community, they are crucial, because it's very important that we are all in the same page before we give the next steps. So take the time that is necessary, engage who you think is critical, and organize what is your purpose for tree growing. The second step is about building partnerships. So alone, what can we achieve? Not a lot. So it's very important that you talk to others and bring them to your project. Might be some local government from your community, might be a key company that is in your landscape. So it's important that you look around and see what are the partners that are important for the context of what you are doing, and engage with them, share the purpose, and go forward for the next step, that is to plan your tree growing actions. Planning is critical because that's when you decide exactly what should be happening, how much is going to cost, what are the techniques that you're going to use for your tree growing, where are the trees, where are the seeds, you know. You need to consider all of that before going to action. If you don't organize yourself, it's going to be so much harder to go to the next step, that is implementation. So implementation is when you put your hands on the ground and you get started with the tree planting and the tree growing component of your project. There are several steps to be considered in implementing, and all of them, like when is the rain season, for example, or where are the seedlings? Are they close to here? Do we need to go and bring them before your actions? Who is going to be engaged in the actions? Who is going to look after the trees after we plant them and make sure that they grow? So this is all part of the implementation component. Well, and you need to really think about what happens after. So we are calling the fifth step as the stewardship of your trees. I think that's what really made me engage with this work, when I realized that the faith-based community does have how can I say that? I see that the faith community has such a strong value in caring for nature, that I think you are the ones that can really make sure that the trees that are being planted are really going to grow. So I really hope that this is true, what I'm thinking here. And then considering the stewardship component is crucial. So who is in the first days, you need to make sure there is water there. Or are there any invasive species growing? Or is there any ant attacking? So all these things you need to consider, and you need to make sure that the trees are looked after and then really grow and even can become a forest. And then finally we have the sixth step, that is about sharing knowledge and connecting to the global movement. We need to tell the stories. We need to tell about the good work that we are doing. Also, if you have some challenges, let's spread them, because we don't want others also to face these challenges. We want to learn from our mistakes. So these are the 6 steps. It might be possible, for example, that you are already doing something. So you might start in step 2 because your purpose is already very well developed. And that's fine, there's no problem. What is crucial along this process is that you monitor what you are doing, because you need to be able to revise if what you were expecting to be achieved is really being achieved, or if you need to do adaptive management through your process. Sometimes you need to revisit and improve what you thought could work but was not working. And then by doing that, by being humble and knowing that sometimes what we expect to happen does not happen, and change the direction of your actions, I think it's very important, because we have no time to lose. We really need to make sure that our actions deliver the results that we're so much hoping for. So with that, I finished the round of the 6 steps. The guide is going to be available. You can see down here in the link of the video, and we really hope that you engage with this process, and then with that we can really grow trees and grow forests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita, for really delineating what those 6 steps are and just making it very practical, like the guide is for how faith communities globally can do tree growing in the different contexts and different environments. That's very helpful. I would now like to transition into a panel discussion. I'd like to invite up Cara and Lauren onto the stage, and we will have a bit of a conversation around some of the more details, practicalities, things to look out for. We have a number of questions for the 3 of you. They're behind you. The questions are there. So I'll just pick them out and I'll just throw them at you, and you can choose which ones you want to answer. So the first question is, and it's a question I had when the guide was launched, is why is it framed around tree growing? What is the difference between tree planting and tree growing? Who would like to take that first question? And please introduce yourselves when you answer.
Thank you for the question and the opportunity. Appreciate participants who are listening, sharing a few minutes of your time to talk about the difference between tree planting and tree growing. And trees are an amazing nature-based solution, clearly. They provide oxygen, they sequester carbon, they provide habitat for biodiversity, the amazing array of species who rely on trees. Tree planting, however, is just one step of achieving a nature-based solution. it's a part of tree growing, but of course the ultimate goal with tree growing is recovering nature. And when we focus just solely on the limited objective of putting trees in the ground, those trees may not survive. It's a measurable target, and because of that, it's an easy one to focus on. How many trees did we put in the ground? But a better objective, a better target, is the strength of the overall solution in terms of the benefits to nature and people from growing trees. And so the guide and the 6 steps in the guide provide the full array of activities to achieve this incredible nature-based solution. From planning the kinds of trees you want to plant, which makes a huge difference in the biodiversity benefits and benefits to people, as well as how you want to array your plantings and how you want to maintain and care for your plants. So in the end, you have a biodiversity-rich forest rather than a single entry activity where you utilize resources to get trees in the ground, but your benefits may be more limited. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I neglected to introduce myself. My name's Kara Nelson. I'm a professor at University of Montana in the Western United States. I also work with the Society for Ecological Restoration, as well as the International Union for Conservation of Nature and their Commission on Ecosystem Management.
You know, I'm just remember some moments that I shared with Kara. This year, we were together in South Korea this year, and we were attending the World Forest Congress. And we were in a special moment there because there was the Lantern Festival in the Buddhist temple. And I have the opportunity to visit, and it was amazing. And it was just so interesting to look around and see how much the trees were valued there. You know, the trees were really like the heart of everything that was happening there. And I was just so surprised and amazed. So I'm sure that tree growing is not going to be a problem for this community here. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer and how you frame it as that tree planting is just one step and tree growing is actually the totality of what needs to happen. And I'm wondering, are there any statistics? Because I think for a lot of us who don't do tree growing or tree planting, we just think, oh, just put it in the ground and it will just look after itself. Nature will, and that's not the case. Are there any statistics or interesting stories about how rates of failure or rates of success in terms of you just put it in the ground and walk away? Any stories or stats on that?
There are so many anecdotes of well-meaning communities coming together and taking actions and in the end not getting a good result. And this is why we are in the ecosystem restoration community producing guidebooks to help communities because they're 95% of the way there with the intention and the heart and the desire to help with tree growing. And so a few minor tweaks can help, but you asked about statistics. In my work in many regions of the globe, I have seen demonstration projects where literally all of the trees have died that have been planted. And sometimes it's because the tree species are appropriate. However, trees grow in many different types of conditions. Sometimes forest trees, in order to regenerate based on which tree species you're planting, require shade. The trees will not survive in the open sun. Now, some tree species will, but some will not. And in addition, many young trees, seedlings and saplings, can be affected by herbivores, animals that browse on the seedlings. Sometimes in areas that have been affected by land use changes, you have really high abundance of these hungry animals that love to snack on little seedlings. And so sometimes you need to protect these seedlings just when they're young from browse. However, sometimes the actual browse protectors will heat up those seedlings. There's other species, so many interesting things, but some species require a facilitator, a helper in order to establish. It might be a big log on the ground that is a sponge for moisture, or it may be a companion seedling. Some species you see, they grow. Instead of removing the entire canopy to set up your site, the existing trees, all those remnant trees, instead of removing everything, maybe leaving some shade or some brush while those little plants are establishing. So getting a little bit of expertise, working with people in the nurseries or the forest experts or the universities for that, little bits of information, and figuring out the right trees to plant for your situation, sort of the enabling conditions on the ground. The site preparation is the jargony way to say that, and then what kind of care the seedlings might need after.
Great, thanks, Cara. And that brings me to my next question, which is who to work with to do this work. You mentioned a few kinds of organizations there, local communities. So who do we need to bring into the process to have a successful tree growing project? Anyone want to take that question?
Lauren, I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
So my name is Lauren Van Ham, and I serve as Climate Action Coordinator for the United Religions Initiative. So I am representing in this conversation the people who are caring for that 8% of the land that Fran mentioned in her opening remarks. We have faith-based actors all around the planet who are really trying to be part of the solution. And I'm happy to say that across the URI network, there are, we call them cooperation circles, but interfaith groups who are planting and growing trees. It's been incredibly helpful and really encouraging for our cooperation circle participants to know that they have a partner in WWF and other organizations who are trying to everything from providing seedlings to offering advice and expertise, and then also absolutely translating the educational materials. Our cooperation circles are really thrilled that WWF is providing a
Yes, and Cara, you were one of the authors, and it was very good that when we work on this material, having the principles are there to guide us. We all, and they are for all the communities. And one of the ways for us to think if we are on the right track with our plan is even to check again the principles and see, are we embedding them, all of them, in the work that we are doing?
Thank you all. I'm looking at the questions we have on the wall over there. So getting into the practicalities of this, what are some of the key components a faith community would need in order to make a good plan? The key components. Maybe Anita, I can start with you.
Well, in order to have a good plan, we need to make sure that we know what we want to achieve, and then we discuss with the community what is to be achieved, and then in order to get there, let's revise the purpose that we create, and then let's set the objectives and the goals that we have for the intermediate results that we want to achieve, and also to the long-term impact that we want to create. So if we think about the long-term impact, it's really to see the tree growing, the tree even making part of a forest. So this will be our goal, like what we really want to achieve in the end of that. Also, I'm sure there are additional goals that we can achieve, that it's about how much are engaging our community, are increasing the hope of our community because they're doing something that is really meaningful, are we strengthening the bonds of our community. So all these additional goals we can also consider in our plan. And then we should also set some objectives for the intermediate results that we want to achieve. So maybe for the first year, what is the first thing that we are going to do? Okay, the first year is we are going to work with the school children of a certain municipality. So this is, then your goal is what do we want to achieve with them in that year one. And then maybe year two, okay, now we want to work with all the schools. You know, so then you set these goals and objectives all along the process, because you can always look back, are we achieving what we wanted to achieve? You know, so a good plan requires objectives and goals that are set based on the target and the impact that you want to achieve. And I would like to also to hear ideas about that.
I would love to just give a few examples of what you're saying, Anita. So the three that come to my mind most immediately a cooperation circle or faith group may decide we want to create a peaceful place or a sacred grove on our church or mosque property, and so we will intend to plant and grow a number of trees on our space with the idea of creating a peaceful gathering space. Another cooperation circle has just been absolutely committed to reforesting an area that has been overused and become treeless. And so now, as the community is understanding what they want to be doing differently in future generations, they are reforesting thousands of trees. Another cooperation circle is really looking at food security, and they're doing a lot with agroforestry. And they're trying to support farmers and diversifying what they're growing and how they will be increasing a revenue stream and providing food for future generations.
So another important partner, of course, is the volunteers, the people who are showing up and sharing their time in the event. And it's really important to consider these volunteers and their experience, because people come to an event for many different types of reasons. Some, all, I would say, are motivated to support this amazing nature-based solution. But in addition, some may be coming to learn technical skills. How do you plant a tree? What species do you plant? Others may be new in the community. Maybe they're coming to meet people and build their connection. So understanding and building into your goals and objectives, not for the entire project. When I say goals and objectives in this context, I mean for your volunteer day. Understanding why volunteers are coming and making sure that you have objectives to meet those activities. So if one important aim of the volunteers' motivation is to build community, make sure people are working together appropriately and having time during the day. In addition, because we've mentioned that tree growing as opposed to tree planting is a process and may require revisiting the site, it's really important for volunteers to have a good experience so that they come back and are part of your process over time. And so making sure you're building your day that respects volunteers' time. If you ask people to come at 9 and they show up at 9, maybe they have rushed their breakfast and they come and nothing starts until 10:30, then they may not come again. But also having appropriate goals for the volunteers, and some of you who are listening who may have participated in a volunteer event, if the organizers say, we are going to plant 2,000 trees and we're going to end at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, only 500 trees has been planted, and your volunteers feel very sad because they've planned other activities for the day. They would like to get to their other activities, but they also don't want to abandon because they want the nature-based solution. They want the ecosystem restoration, and so maybe next time they'll think, oh, I don't know if I want to come because I don't know how it will impact my day. So those are just two small examples, but the main thing I'm trying to communicate is to plan a really nice volunteer experience where their needs are met, and you can celebrate your success of the day and maybe end a little early is really important for building a volunteer program rather than just a one-off volunteer event.
Thank you. And Kara, you started leaning into my next question, which is, what are some of the challenges around this work? Just then you were talking about making sure volunteers have a good experience. In your earlier remarks, you were talking about how just invasive species or herbivores or other things can affect the success of the project. But what are some of the other challenges that we may face as members of faith communities as we try to do these kinds of projects?
The two that come to me most readily are funding. Of course, faith groups are always looking for ways to really be successful, and sometimes the money isn't there at the beginning. we do have some cooperation circles who have been incredibly creative with various fundraising activities and ways that members of the community are able to adopt one of the trees that is being planted and grown, that sort of thing. Another challenge was a cooperation circle who hadn't thought through all of the steps completely, and so the trees were at the nursery, the seedlings, but the water supply wasn't present. And so until they had the funds to have the solar pump and have the water readily available, the community was really rallying to bring water from a faraway distance over to the nursery. So there are steps that need to be planned, and that's why, again, this guide is incredibly helpful.
Well, I love that the guide includes the sharing step, because restoration, tree growing, nature-based solutions, they all require repeat visits, repeat engagement. It's a process. And so an implementation challenge is that long-term ongoing management, and unless findings are shared and records are kept, one person who's a champion for the project may leave. And you may have future champions who are limited because they can't find information. So record keeping, archiving, sharing, all of that is important so we know what happened, we can celebrate successes, but also for ongoing implementation of the project.
Yes, I would just add one component that we very often see as a challenge, that is to monitor your results. And with this type of activity and action on the tree growing project, there's something that very easy can be done, is for you to take a picture, for example, always from the same angle across and along the year, for example. And it's just amazing to see, because you're really going to see how your community is going to celebrate. Because if you, of course, you use the right species, you plant it in the right time of the year, and you're really looking after your actions, you're going to see the result, and it's flourishing and blooming. So make sure that you monitor well the results in a consistent way, because you are going to see how powerful this can be for you to tell the story, and also to see if you're really getting to where you want to get.
And so moving on to a little bit of our personal kind of role in this, what does it mean to be a good steward or a good caretaker? What is the mood or the consciousness or the meditation we should have individually in order to show up with the right energy to do this work? Lauren, if you start with that.
I'm smiling as Gopal asks me that question, because I'm thinking, joy? I think it is so wonderful in the list of other things that we might be doing to support our faith group or to be in service in our community. This is my bias, of course, but that I might put my hands in some soil and be outdoors just brings me joy. That might not be true for everyone else, and depending on how degraded a particular space has been, I could imagine that there might also just be intentions and meditations for healing, that we might pray for the land to be healed. And I'm also aware that there are many cooperation circles who set about a tree growing effort because the area has been wrecked by war or violence or other extreme examples that we face on our planet. And so for there to be the intention of peace and true restoration, this has been a real incentive, I think, for a lot of faith groups too.
And here I'm smiling, just thinking, how can I really be engaged with you, and see all this happening, and see all this stewardship really taking place. We do have, as we were talking about, examples of trees that were planted and nothing happened. And here we have something different with this community. We have a community that is responsible for our Mother Earth. And this is what put all us together here in this COP15 and in this work that we're doing. So I really want to be part and see these stewards really in action, and in the days to come for us to really have forests back to the places that we love so much.
I'll add the word wonder. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. We could not invent a better solution to our environmental problems than a tree that is able to so efficiently provide oxygen and sequester carbon and provide food and fiber. It is wondrous, but also in tree planting, you have an opportunity to wonder at the organisms living in the soil and their relationships with trees and the relationships among individual trees and among species. So take time in your tree growing initiative while you have your hands in the soil to wonder at our amazing environment and how special and lucky we are to live on this planet at this time.
Thank you. And how do we, once we're full of this joy and this wonder and this love, how do we share that best with other people? How do we encourage others to be involved in this activity, share the good results, the best practice? We as faith communities are pretty good at sharing good news and telling other people about what we're doing and about how to live a good life, a nourished life, a fulfilled life. But how do we tell people about the importance of this work and why it's important? Who would like to start with that?
I have a suggestion. So we are all here together under the big umbrella of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. So the UN declared that from 2021 until 2030, this is the decade, and we are all here together around that. And under the decade, there are some platforms for us to share it, and we should take advantage of them. And one of them is Restore. It's an online platform that you can join, and you can create your community there. You can put your collection, you can bring all the data, so you can even put a square or a shape file, we say a polygon, in the area that you're taking an action. You can describe your action, you can engage everyone there, so it's kind of a Facebook thing. You can put your picture and you can tell who you are and which community you're part of, and you can be connected to that area that some action happened. So it's amazing. I am right there. I hope to see you in Restore, because it's our global place to put all the actions that we're doing to promote the restoration of our forests and also other ecosystems. I don't know that we are talking here more about forests. We are in the tree growing discussion, but this can go even beyond. Does not need to be only for forest. So, do you want to say something on that?
So Anita mentioned sharing globally, and the Decade platform has this amazing opportunity to share with someone around the globe also working on tree growing and forest restoration. There's also local sharing with your local community, your really good experiences, because we have now, especially coming out of the global pandemic, so much time indoors on screens, Zoom with people meeting electronically, and the opportunity to spend time with friends and family and colleagues in a natural setting for tree growing and nature-based solutions is something that companies can participate in, schools can participate in, of course faith-based groups and events. It can be shared and planned in all kinds of different contexts. So the more you share your experiences, the more people may have ideas about how they can integrate tree growing into their own activities and lifestyles.
I would just add all of the storytelling and the videos that we do share because of our social media connections. I want to underscore how incredibly affirming that has been, that as we are seeing across the URI network, a tree growing project in Malawi or Uganda or India or California, that it has been a good news story for everyone else too. And similarly, just on the underside of that, if the trees are struggling, and we share that across the network, very similar to the trees themselves. the trees are communicating, so too are the people, and the people are saying, we need help, and we call that out across the network, and the network responds. So it's really good to share our successes and our needs for help, because the network will help.
Great, thank you all. We'll be taking questions from the floor, so if anybody has questions, please do let us know. I'm going to take the liberty as the moderator to ask the first question, and it's something that all of you have spoken about a little bit, but I'm wondering if you could dive a bit deeper into why do you do this work? What brings you joy out of this work? Because I think we as faith-based communities, oftentimes it's volunteer-led, as you said, Kara, and it has to be fun, has to be enjoyable. And definitely being part of a faith community is about community and love and so on. So I'm wondering if each of you can share what you get out of tree growing and these kinds of ecosystem restoration projects. How does that make you feel? Who would like to start?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Well, this is not the first time someone asked me this question, so I'm so ready. Because people, where do you take this energy that you have? You know, how can you do it? You know, you work so hard. I am a biologist, and I was 15 when I decided to be a biologist, and I never changed my mind, you know, because this is really something that brings me joy, and where I take my energies from nature. You know, nature heals me, and with that, like by working so hard, nature just provides me more energy. So I think I am in a loop in a cycle between me and nature. That's why I do that, and I care so much, and that's all. I'm here just because I love nature, and we really want to make sure that we want to heal our planet.
Well, Anita, I feel so similarly. When I was in my sort of formative years and I spent time in nature, it was an amazing experience, and it motivated me at a really young age to want to study ecology. I'm also a biologist, and now I engage with community groups in tree growing because it is a concrete way to bridge what we know about ecosystems with the key environmental issues we have, and something active that people can do, sharing with people to be part of a positive solution for the planet.
There are so many spiritual teachings in all of the traditions about why we might care for creation or how we find ourselves as part of creation. So I think for me, it's affirmed in what I have been taught as a spiritual practitioner, that because I am creation, I care for it. And I want to echo what you said before, Kara, about wonder. It feels so good to be immersed in beauty or trying to create beauty and just be part of that life cycle.
Great, thank you. And another question just came to mind, so I'm going to take the liberty of asking another one, which is, hearing you all speak and how this work nourishes you. Anita, you live in Brazil, near rainforests. And Kara, you live in Montana, beautiful country there. Lauren, you're in California, Northern California, near some wonderful national parks. I live just outside of New York City. And, opportunities to do tree growing projects there are limited. And I think a lot of people may feel like this is great if you live in the country or in the wild or near a forest, but if you're living in a major city, like a lot of us do, you may feel like, well, this isn't something for us. So if you could speak to that a little bit, like those of us who live in big cities, in urban areas, how can we get involved?
I love this question. So ecosystem restoration is not just about places that are managed for wildlife or wild characteristics. Ecosystem restoration activities need to happen in cities, in production landscapes throughout the spectrum. And for instance, we know that having small patches of native species in cities is incredibly important as stepping stones for these species to exist in other places. And that includes migrating species, but also insects with small habitat ranges. And so the value of these small patches cannot be shared and spoken about enough. And so there is ecological value. There's also social value. for having experiences in nature, regardless of where you live. And so it's not about the spatial scale of the activity, but the ecological integrity and the contribution to recovery in whatever kind of habitat that you're bringing in.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so I'll need to go back to New York and find out what I can do there in that concrete jungle. It's another kind of jungle, a concrete jungle.
I remember to tell you something. Well, New York has such a successful case because everywhere that you go in New York, you can just drink the water from the tap, and in several cities this cannot happen. And the reason that this happens in New York because a long time ago there was a project that restored the watershed that provides water to New York. That's the Catskill. So maybe visit Catskill, Gopal. This might be a very good way for you to really see where your water is coming from.
Great, thank you, Anita. Any questions from the floor? Yeah, one here.
Hello, I'm Taruin from the WWF Brazil. So I just wonder a general question. Do you think is there a potential for like the faith-based community and faith-based movement to disseminate and to bring a broad knowledge that restoration is more than just planting? It's like tree growing, like you're saying here. It's not, and not only like tree, but we are actually growing forests. So do you think the faith-based community has this potential to disseminate this knowledge?
Thank you.
It's a great question, and I think because of some of the partnerships that we've lifted up today, my answer would be yes. Yes, that faith-based groups can do that. Restore, if you haven't played around on Restore yet, I do recommend it. It's a great website. It's a wonderful interactive tool. And if the trees that are growing already are documented on Restore, it will be contagious. We will see how effective we are and what a difference it is making. And there are other ways of doing that too. I really think that because faith actors have it within their teachings to contribute positively, they also go to their jobs during the day that don't necessarily they're in secular society and they're having conversations about what they did over the weekend or what they need to do when they get home from work, go water the trees. These kinds of conversations, of course, replicate and spread, and together we can do this.
It just made me think of a, faith-based barometer or something, a challenge, an initiative of how much could get done by faith-based organizations across the globe, and maybe trying to come together and quantify, have a challenge, a number. What do you think? Should we do it? Should we pick a number?
I think it's a great idea, and I really love what you said too about the size of what is being planted and grown. It doesn't matter so much. That if I'm in a city, but I have the opportunity to be tending a rooftop garden so that the pollinators have a place to come, or there are just a few trees in an otherwise kind of concrete park area, it's still a huge gift.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I love the idea of some kind of healthy competition amongst the faiths to see who can grow the most trees. And this platform, Restore, it's RESTOR. Yeah, and Tom Crowther, who's here, we've had conversations with him about how to have faith groups more active on the platform. And so I think having that platform with the faiths could be really powerful. If we have no more questions, I think we are close to time, and so I'm wondering if each of you would like to close with just a few concluding words as we wrap up. Kara, should we go with you first?
Well, just first, thank you so much for the invitation. It's been really fun being a part of this, and I would just want to close and wish you all well with your tree growing activities, and hope that you will utilize the guidebook and think through the entire cycle and consider your activities as part of a process of tree growing.
Well, also a big thank you. It's such a privilege to be with all of you here in this panel. And what I would like to say is that I'm looking forward for the next steps. So we are planning to produce a material to disseminate the ideas. We want to do hands-on workshops to be with you together to make sure that this guide is implemented and really helps you to move forward and to succeed so well with our healing nature process. So thank you.
I'll just end with the lyrics of a tree song that I so love. I won't sing, but the words might be a blessing you can all take with you today. May your lives be blessed like a tree. May your souls be wrapped in greenness. May your roots be long. May your shoots be strong. May your souls be wrapped in greenness. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Lauren. A perfect way to end it. Anita, could we just see the guide again one more time? And can you just tell us again where it's available to download?
Yes, this is available in the resources component of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration website. So if you just search UN Decade Tree Guide, Tree Growing Guide for Faith-Based Organizations, you're going to find it in a click. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Cara, Anita, and Lauren. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. The guide is available. Please do get it, download it, and plan your tree growing exercise and put it on the Restore platform and share it with your friends and your community. Thank you.